What's up, Parachute Orphans and Retrogrades? I have a wonderful show for you today and a wonderful guest, an even more extraordinary guest. His name is Mr. Patrick Coffin. He's the co-founder of CoffinNation.com. He is a podcaster at this oddly titled show, The Patrick Coffin Show. And he's with me right now. You can see him if you continue looking at your screen. What's up, Pat?
Hello, Timothy Gordon. I'm flummoxed by your overemphasis on the word wonderful regarding the N. You linger there, wonderful, which is, you and I have talked about this. It's something that I think bishops learn at what they literally call baby bishop school. I don't know what it is. Bishops seem to overuse the word wonderful when they linger on the N in the word. So deft intro, friend. Good to be with you.
Well, it's something of an inside joke, but you know, the shorthand for that is it's just it's what the gays do. So that has maybe something to do with it. I don't know. But what I do know is a couple things. We have a phenomenal show, a wonderful show for everyone out there who's watching live right now. Wonderful. And we're going to be talking about the symptoms of effeminacy in the culture. There are so many, they're plenary, that we thought we would talk about them here today. And we're going to go back and forth. But first, I also know you had a wonderful summit, or you're going to have a wonderful summit on the beer bug, and I'd like to hear about it right now.
We did one last October, and with only 20 days to launch the .com, we got 7,000 plus people from all over the world.
Yep.
That first summit, it's called Truth Over Fear. We had absolute standout presenters from German attorney Rainer Fulmich, Irish professor of medicine Dr. Dolores Cahill, psychiatrist Dr. Aaron Cariotti, frontline doctors Dr. Mark McDonald, who's a child psychiatrist, Dr. Jeff Barkey in clinical practice, all swinging for the fences that we are being lied to on a massive scale. And this coming summit, which is the last weekend of April, so Friday, April 30th and Saturday, May 1st, same title, but we're going to focus on the, how shall I say, and get past the bots, the Maxine and the Great Reset. And that features, here's my intro to what I'm about to say, Tim. This massive fraud, the greatest hoax in human history, is so obvious that people all across the political and religious spectrum are seeing this. So we have speakers, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., someone more familiar to your audiences, Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigano. There are people who are atheists, people who are from multiple countries, Protestants, Catholics, people with no particular worldview, doctors like Dr. Roger Hodkinson from Edmonton. We have an attorney named John Carpe who's representing an Alberta Christian pastor. Now, I want people to hear this. Pastor James Coates, family man, husband, father, decided not to go along with the facial diaper protocols in Alberta. On Ash Wednesday, he was jailed. He's in a maximum security remand center, has been since Ash Wednesday. So this Protestant minister, so brave, decided not to agree to the release requirements and where he sits today in jail. So he's having a good old-fashioned Pentecostal Lent. So Mr. Carpe is going to talk about what's at stake in Pastor Coates' jailing. So it's restoretheculture.com is the website. Right now depending on when people see this, the old iteration might still show up, but that's if you want a premium pass, they're on sale as well. So restoretheculture.com, and thank you for listening.
That sounds awesome. And I did know that you did the one in October, and I did know that you got big numbers. It's awesome stuff, and it's necessary, and you are bolder and more out there than almost anyone I know, without thought of recrimination or reprisal to your channel or anything. So that's good. I know you don't even bother on your channel to use the bot beating newspeak, and just great job on that. Great work. I know the other one was good. Retrogrades and Parish Orphans. Go see Pat's summit. Give the date again, Pat.
Friday, April 30th, Saturday, May 1st. If you want to just watch it and enjoy the talks, it's free. If you want engagement on what's the phrase? Live Q&A sessions. We have a closed Facebook group. We're going to throw lots of concrete tools into people's hands. Like, how do you argue with a store manager if you don't want to wear a facial diaper? What do you say to any law enforcement, anyone who tries to pressure you? The short answer is, unless you're a medical doctor, you can't tell me that I have to impede my breathing and affect my immune system and respiratory system.
Yeah.
Plus, this is all going to be found to be unconstitutional anyway down the road. So if you get a fine, don't pay it because it's not going to hold up.
I have been arguing with store managers about all manner of topics since roughly the day I got married. So I don't need a tutorial on that, but I think a lot of people do.
Well, you're blessed to live in Mississippi, where the lockdown police have loosened their grasp thanks to your governor.
He's a good man. He cowed on the state flag after promising voters before I moved here that he wouldn't, but he's been good on this other issue, which shall go unnamed.
Yes.
All right, so this is what we're going to do. It's going to be a fun little game, and I talk to Pat 1 to 2 times a week, off record, Retrogrades, parish orphans. So it's a little hard among the folks that one lives with, talks to really, really regularly, not to get silly. And today's show is just going to be wonderful, good fun. So I'm going to try to run through my symptoms, and I'm going to let Pat lead off here. He's a leadoff man. We're going to go through at least 10 symptoms of cultural effeminacy. I tried to pick from my own. I'm just putting my thing out there. Then Pat can kick us off. It's a game. It can be a person. It can be an expression. It can be an abiding attitude or disposition. Anything, hopefully, that's not necessarily inextricably tied up in the obvious feminism stuff, because everyone knows that I'm anti-feminism, that I think Pat's anti-feminism. But there are markers, there are symptoms that don't necessarily have to do with the male, the masculine, or the feminine. This is effeminacy. So you kick us off. It can be anything, person, place, or thing that stinks the way effeminacy stinks. Let's begin.
First off, I think it's extremely important that you are broaching this topic, because it's endemic in all parts of culture, society, church leadership, management, Hollywood. Obviously, the problem of effeminacy is much more dangerous than the bug. And so maybe I thought we'd start with a definition. To me, effeminacy is primarily a problem that afflicts males, and it doesn't really have anything to do with homosexuality. It has to do with men adopting the characteristics of women. Chiefly, and this is my first one out of the gate, is passivity, as opposed to instigation or initiation, where men just are always playing defense. They're always playing catch up because they don't get out in front of a problem. They just wait for the thing to happen to them because they're busy, changing channels on their couch potato throne. So I think passivity is,
as opposed to, theologically, it's activity is supposed to be one of the foremost markers of men. Passivity, female. Expressivity, male. Receptivity, female. Just think of, not to put too fine a point on it, Pat, but to plug in your typical house plug. There's a male end and a female end. There's the expressive and the receptive. That seems to be altogether gone, right? And one should look for it in all the other symptoms, I would say, that we're talking about here today. Good lead off.
Well, thou speakest in code. I'm not sure if I pick up what thy is laying down. Are you saying that masculinity and femininity is uniquely symbolized by the physical union in sexual congress? Is that where we're going?
Exactly.
Yes.
That's
true. Well, you see, that's also being attacked because all I need to do is identify with someone who has the opposite biological equipment, and there's nothing you can do about it because hate crime.
That's true, and it's effeminate because it represents a laying down of arms when the arms should not be laid down. It represents a passivity when there should be an activity, or a receptivity where there should be an expressivity. I think that this is an interesting temperamental issue. Why men really are supposed to be louder. Men are supposed to be not necessarily loquacious. We associate that in 2021 with females, probably because everything's so effeminate. But there's supposed to be a bold kind of domineering. I remember when I was first married, and I was going into stores, at which I would almost always wind up in one small argument or another with the store manager, which prepared me well for the beer bug. I would, it was funny. I could just tell, because my wife's not a shusher by nature. She's not bossy. She's not annoying. She's cool. If your wife's a shusher or bossy or annoying, you probably wouldn't describe her the way I describe my wife, people out there. But I could tell that just my speech, the level of assertion, the volubility of the ways that I would aver things would, even though we dated a long time, and she knew I would play grocery store Olympics and jump over the aisles and things like that. It was new as the wife to a husband who is now dragging her down into the mire as per store managers. Can we
give me an example so I follow you? Because I thought you were, well, maybe you are as well, talking about the size of your tribe and how how prolix you are in the offspring department and answering people who say, how those things are caused, right? But are you talking about something else? Are you just being assertive with store managers who are harassing you, or why are they harassing you? I'm trying to understand.
I'd say loud conversation about things that might be unpalatable to other people, right?
I'll give you the example. The example is what usually happens when Tim and I are on a grocery run is that he'll try to make jokes with the cashier, and they're pretty boisterous, like interactive jokes, like just kind of conversation. And you can tell they're just kind of like, they have like no idea.
They're not running into that.
They're uncomfortable.
People are probably just like, he's just a D-bag that's making bad jokes. But no, I mean, sometimes, to be fair, they're somewhat funny jokes, right?
Yeah.
And they're not completely like obnoxious, like, oh, ha ha ha, you're dressed so poorly or something like that. It just kind of, I don't know.
Like making fun of a magazine cover, and this always happens. Like, so there'll be some sort of like weird feministy Cosmo magazine, and he'll like make some like jab at the magazine to like the cashier, and they just have no idea.
They don't know what to do. And I'm like, what? I have our friend, mutual friend, who's become closer friend recently, Grover from Twitter. He's an assertive guy too, and when we get together, it's just like, it reminds me of being young again. Spring has sprung, because we're both just going at it like me and my buddies would when we're walking through the town square. If you see Oprah somewhere on a magazine cover, which is almost inevitable, you're like, oh, I'm surprised she had time in between baked hams to do a photo shoot or whatever. They don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah, I'm sort of like a living interactive game. People don't know it. And look, the word orgasm appears on Cosmopolitan. What?
Yeah.
Just kind of let it fall in their lap. But part of it is that people they want to. It's been drilled into them that the customer is always right, so they're not sure how to domesticate me. Or am I kidding? I go through life being told by people they're not sure that they're not sure that I'm kidding, which
right.
That is my role all the time. Only once I start laughing and like kind of wink at the cashier, do they know that my husband isn't like trying to be mean or whatever.
This better not be male cashiers you're winking at, young lady. Yeah,
what is that discarnate feminine voice I hear, Tim? Are you like a ventriloquist?
It goes to show something important, and it's that when I'm around guys like Grover from Twitter, I just remember, hey, there are other dudes out there that want to be dudes, and he's a really nice guy, as are you, and as were my friends growing up.
It's mostly a wonderful compliment.
You're a wonderful man. I mean that both ways, but it's just shocking to see that these are good statistical samplers, a cashier, and they're dealing with half the population all day long, 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week. And you could tell I'm catching him off guard, because it's not like, oh, he's one of the 25% of the population, the male population that's still boisterous. It's sui generis to them. They're not dealing with men like me at all anymore. I'll see this at the outset. Something might theoretically just be wrong with me, but I don't think that's what it is. I think I'm an erstwhile man, and they're just not getting it.
There are things wrong, Tim. It's just not that thing that's wrong.
Sorry, we're getting some people in chat saying that Pat's audio is pretty low, and so maybe Tim, do you want to do your next thing here?
Yeah, I'll go. Yeah, you check that out.
I'm maxed out over here, so ABC, let me know if I can help you.
I just maxed out on bench press, bro.
Right. because that's what's up.
Yeah.
I don't do this on purpose, but as you're describing interacting with clerks and other people who serve the public, it's also an act of charity to them to get them laugh, give them a little levitus moment. A lot of
Right.
people, they're in jobs they hate. They have to stand there and deal with the smelly public all day long. And I think to make someone laugh or have a little absurd moment is something charitable to them. It's like a cleanser palate of a palate cleanser, I should say, at a wine tasting thing. It's just something different, especially if they're tired. Maybe they're dealing with a lot in their personal life. Maybe they're lonely,
Right.
and they're not used to people saying, "Hey," like in my case, I'll do a very quick like mentalism thing. I'll do like a little mind hack, and I'll say, I'll be back. Don't let it have bad dreams. And I've created a little moment of wonder or comedy, and comedy is divine.
Yeah, like when
How's
Michael Scott dresses like Willy Wonka and inserts the golden tickets. I like how what you did is you dressed up us being puerile hacks that everyone's just getting annoyed at in moral garb, and now we're like the heroes. Like I tried to give them a little variegation, a little color splendor in their day, in their otherwise black and white day.
If I can baptize immaturity, I will.
Me too. Number 2,
Yeah.
I will say this. And again, this can be a person, place, thing, or expression. My expression is, and again, don't care if people out there are like, hey, I said that. We're pregnant.
I can't even
When
hear
a
you
man,
say that. Yeah.
when a man says we are pregnant, this means, just reasoning it out grammatically, ecumenically, syntagmatically, biologically, dare I say, that that the husband impregnated the wife and the wife impregnated the husband. This is proto gender theory, right? You can't, you impregnated your wife, and you might not want that in verbalization of it might give too explicit kind of visual image. I am pregnant. But if people are like, hey, congratulations, just say it to my wife. She's pregnant. You don't have to say, hey, congratulations on you impregnating her roughly how long ago? I mean, that's a little explicit. I'll give you that. But no, you both are not pregnant. This is not the second person plural. You're not both pregnant. Just the dude is. I don't like it.
That's really good, and it reminds me of I'm kind of obsessed with snapshots before and after, as far as how the culture has tilted since the mid '60s. I think '65 is the tilt year. '65, '66 is when things started to go sideways. Before that, before the Hays Production Code had been disassembled by Jack Valenti, a lapsed Catholic member of LBJ staff. You couldn't say the word pregnant. You couldn't have it in movies, and you couldn't have it on television. Barbara Eden's midriff was not allowed to be shown on I Dream of Jeannie because it's intimately connected to the sacredness and mystery of childbirth. You couldn't have a married couple in bed. Rob and Laura Petrie's beds were separate. This was standard. No one even challenged it. And then after 65, 66, you've got the big slide. We can go into the whole history of movies that made Best Picture Oscar status. But I kind of like that reticence to go full, now it's just de rigueur, right? Pregos, pregnant. There's no reluctance to admit the sacredness of the mystery of life's origins in our speech. We're very street level on it. And I think We're Pregnant is both a reflection of that and of effeminacy. Because it's like the man is virtue signaling. Hey, I'm pregnant too. I'd love to see the average man go through 30 seconds of childbirth, labor, see what happens.
More than that, it's a kind of spreading around of the blame. Remember what the culture of death did. And this would include a contraceptive mindset. But the abortive mindset in the first place of first wave feminism through whatever wave we're on now, the baby germinating in the woman's system is treated like a parasite, and pregnancy itself is treated like a burden. Or if you ask the medical establishment, which is very secular humanist, as you know, it's treated more like a sickness. This means that the man is sharing the sickness of the burden. Go ahead.
That's right. And for sicknesses, you need to throw a pill at it, hence the pill. The birth control pill is the only pill that gets the appellation the pill. And it it angles us to accept the premise that pregnancy is a disease. So what you just said, so the number one, if I'm keeping track properly, passivity in men. Number two, we're pregnant. Number three, happy wife, happy life.
There it is. Yeah. Ooh.
Oh.
Brutal.
Yeah.
Where do you, can we have a moment of silence for that one?
Yeah,
Exactly.
please, let's do that. Yeah.
Because if someone's ever said it, I know you have more to say on it. It means they have the most miserable existence imaginable. No people, like happy men don't say this, and good wives don't foster the viewpoint constituted by this expression.
Yeah. My happiness is regulated by my wife's happiness. And if wives think that their husband is using this operating system, the happy wife will never really arrive, because there will always be something to complain about. And so now we have literally Ephesians 5 reversed.
Right.
I think many effeminate men are thrilled to be submissive to their wives because of this print, because of number 3 here.
Absolutely. I was talking about this actually also with Grover. He's figuring into a lot of our show today.
Yeah,
but
I don't like that you're seeing someone else, Tim, but go on with your story.
It's a Muppet, so deal with it. We talked about this on when I'm away from Sesame Street. That's my Pat time. But the funny thing is, what does people are going to hate the metaphor, but it's not actually strictly speaking a metaphor. It refers to the actual structure of a pyramidal hierarchy. You know, the children in the family, they haven't come of age yet, or even once they come of age, they're still clearly underneath the household authority of the father, which is mediated by the mother, right? So children, mother, father. The children don't like to be given grants, ceaseless grants all the time. There's even the Simpsons used to do shows on this. You see a miserable kid that's like, hey mom, I want a video game. And she's like, okay, fine. And he's like, actually get me too. That's a miserable kid. And she gives in, she capitulates. Yeah. That's a miserable kid. It's a similar thing. Happiness is made of delimitation, of limits. So guys that let their wives spend all the time toward the instantiation of happy wife, happy life. Guys that never say, no, we're not going to be doing that. No, we're not. We've done enough. We've watched enough female flicks. It's a grant when the leader says, yeah, we can watch a chick flick once every blue moon or whatever it is. It's a prudential call. It's up to each household father, but it makes for spoliation, which is a term I don't even hear about kids anymore, spoiled kids. It makes for spoliation for a leader to be ceaselessly granting boons. You do it every once in a while and it makes it special. If you go to Disneyland every day, on the other hand, it's no longer special. This is happy wife, happy life. And it's for cucks.
Yeah, agree in full.
Well, so since we've been doing linguistic things, I guess I'll slide one forward. This is another expression. And it's the expression that's a repudiation. It's not gender specific, sex specific. No such thing as gender. The expression not charitable as a kind of rebuke to roughly 40% of the things that ever come out of my mouth by other random people or whatever, but not by my wife, by other people. A lot of times, Pat, this rebuke comes from men. And I class this as one of those rebukes by effeminate men who are getting stuff filtered from their wife. Again, this is part of the pyramidal structure of a hierarchy. The culture should come from the leader, right? The leader gives the culture. But if all of the words, the kind of misused expressions like charity, the highest of the supernatural virtues, is being misleadingly used all the time, misinterpretably used all the time, then that shouldn't catch. That shouldn't catch in the household. You always feel like this guy's wife is wagging her finger at you when a guy says, Tim, it's not really charitable. It's like, look, it's my right. And it's your right to take offense. But I have an opinion and I'm entitled to it. I just expressed it. If you don't like it, then don't listen or whatever. But don't tell me it's not charitable Charity is the highest of the three supernatural virtues, and it has very little to do with your paltry bourgeois sense of what can be said in polite society. Take a hike.
Yeah, I don't think they even mean it literally. I think that wasn't charitable is code for that wasn't nice. There's a really terrific, lest I say wonderful book by Dr. Robert Glover. I will recommend to your viewers. It's called No More Mr. Nice Guy. And please don't email me saying, oh, we had a pro-LGBT paragraph. Forget that. No More Mr. Nice Guy is a very important book for men to read, because it's not a study in how not to be effeminate explicitly, but that's exactly what it is. Catholic men in particular are brainwashed to think that Jesus Christ was a nice guy and that your job is to imitate him. So don't ruffle feathers. Don't speak truth to power. Don't say anything that might make someone else have sad feelings inside. So I think, quote, not charitable is code for, that's not nice. And non-effeminate men shouldn't really care about what is nice. They should care about what is true. And if you're speaking the truth, and of course there's an obnoxious way to do it. You can shoot yourself in your own foot by being a DB about it. On the other hand, the truth is never uncharitable by definition.
A defensive back? What's wrong with that? Are you anti-football player now?
I was talking about
yeah.
Dodge boots.
Dodgeball. Yeah, no, I agree. The funny thing is, one hears a constant perversion of, or it's more just a redaction, I should say, of what Jesus did when the money changers were changing their money at temple. He yelled at them. You'll hear that, right? You'll hear that occasionally he turned over tables. Sometimes I hear that, but contra this hijack of charity, you never hear that he fashioned out of his own makeshift materials. He MacGyvered a bullwhip, like Richard Dean Anderson in 1989. He MacGyvered up a bullwhip and started whipping people.
I have never been mad enough where I'm actually fashioning a weapon in real time to start assaulting people with. So
right.
That was mad. He was mad.
It's the ultimate hold my beer moment.
Yeah, for real. I mean, but seriously, I don't know. What is your response to that, Pat? I like your responses in real time on things like this. Is that not a game changer that's often left off? Yeah, he changed he turned over the tables, but he's whipping people. This tells me something about masculinity because he's my model. Whip people. That's what it does.
Yeah, as the prophet Devo said, whip it good.
Yeah. Exactly.
Don't just whip it. Yeah, there's a lot of editorializing that happens among the effeminate with respect to the words and deeds of Jesus. And it's a selective way to read scripture, to take out the uncomfortable bits. Our Protestant brethren do it all the time with things like faith alone. Yes, in James chapter 2, the phrase faith alone is employed, but it's preceded by the word not. Or people who say that scripture alone is the sole rule of faith. Yeah, that is in 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 14 through 17, but it only says that scripture is inspired and profitable. It doesn't even say what scripture is, nor whether or not it's the sole rule of faith. So yeah, there's definitely selective editing. I think the whip example is really interesting because I think it reflects a little bit of the charism of Flannery O'Connor, whose short stories are so filled with grotesque extremity that wake you up. If you're sleepwalking, a Flannery O'Connor story will wake you up, and certainly a whip would have done it. Does that caboose fit your train, sir?
Yeah, it does. Though that's one of we have to add a no homo when you say that.
Well, I've ignored a lot of GHEY stuff that you've been laying out, but if it's going to be that way.
No, I agree. I agree with the spirit of what you're saying, not the letter of the law. Well, yeah, I think we're on number 5, which would be you. I like that caboose.
Justin Trudeau.
Yeah. That's number 5.
Man.
Holy, another awkward moment brought to you by, Justin Trudeau is effeminate, proud male feminist extraordinaire. He is, what can I say? He is a walking, mushy, half-bearded dollop of effeminacy.
You're, you're good with those modifiers. He is a dollop of effeminacy. And I guess he walks, and I couldn't disagree. I know less about him than you, because as Americans, we're trained to just ignore Canadian politicians, but you come from Canada itself. And yet you should, do you have any specific examples? I remember I really was shaking my head the last, I don't know, 8 times I saw him in the news. I'm nothing specific's coming to mind. What's the most effeminate thing he's ever done or said? They're really bad.
2 things. Continually brag about the fact that he's a feminist, and he recommends that all Canadian males imitate him. Secondly, he rarely misses an opportunity to praise the Communist Chinese Party. So there's a sycophantish quality to him. He's been a drama teacher, and some say a bouncer, which is hilarious. He got elected because women find his eyelashes adorable, and his father was a famous statesman, the 2-time Prime Minister of Canada, Pierre Elliott Trudeau. Apart from that, just not qualified. He's just kind of, I think he fulfills Chesterton's definition of a dead body floating downstream, with a few virtue signaling things along the way. Specific policy things will probably die on the ice with American viewers, but just Google him, watch him for more than 10 seconds in any particular context, and you'll see what I mean.
He's icky. I know that one. Yeah, that was very good, because you just pulled that out like nobody's business. He really is. He's got the finely coiffed eyebrows and the half beard. We're talking about physiognomy here, and he is the physiognomy of effeminacy.
I would never recommend people Google him and Fidel Castro. I'm not saying that you should do that to see any kind of resemblance. So let's move on, shall we?
Number 6 is probably my weakest outing of the day. Man caves. Yep. These represent, and I think I talked about them on a show that Taylor Marshall and I did with you on Patrick Coffin show. They represent a lot, because what conservatives do in the cultural landscape is they get beat back, and now we're at the last proverbial, I don't know, square 9 inches or so. And all around us, we're beset by leftist garbage. The left wins, we lose. The left dominates, we capitulate. You name it. This is what man caves are, except in the domestic spaces. They are literally an admission that the masculine, the leader, the household priest, the one that is charged with, naming and adumbrating what the culture of the household should be, it's been reduced to a 9-by-9 room, and this is where all of the things that are masculine in the house shall be laying. It represents the same kind of forfeiture, submission, whatever that conservatives and Christians have done in the culture. Did you have?
I was going to say 9-by-9 carport.
Right.
Where they've been relegated.
Right. Carport. That's true.
101%. The man cave is an escapist security blanket for men to stop being yelled at by mommy. And I'd like to see man caves converted into libraries with crackling fires. If you like whiskey or tobacco, a pipe or cigar, where you can meet and grow in the intellectual life, where you can meet with other men, where you can pray. I finally I'm kind of proud of myself. I got a prie-dieu, as the French say, a kneeler. Kneelers are such great, simple, non-effeminate things, because they're slightly uncomfortable. It's not like sitting in the sofa or on your lazy boy with a rosary. You have to kind of kneel down, and there's a kind of a posture to it. It means something. There's a kind of a physical mode that goes along with praying that it pinches a little bit. I don't mean it hurts. I mean, you can pray for a long time on a prie-dieu, but I think the man cave is a great symbol of what Dave Barry calls the rise of the guy. Think of the difference between a man and a guy. A man would be Robert Mitchum, Gary Cooper. Obviously, the iconic man would be John Wayne. That generation of men who were not allergic to conflict, and often in their real lives. James Stewart did bombing raids as a wing commander in the Air Force. never wanted to talk about his public service, but he lived it out. And now we have the Jerry Seinfeld generation. We have the male. That was going to be my next one, by the way. The male cast of Friends. Okay. No, eunuchs for the kingdom of secularity. Definitely effeminate.
Yeah, that's number 7. The cast of Friends. These guys are barely even biologically passable as men, and they've been rebranded. And I didn't even know. I think I saw Kyrie Irving had a tattoo of Friends, which didn't seem like it would be his set. It didn't seem like it would be his thing. I think I saw it 5 or 6 years ago because I'm a b-ball fan, and then I saw more and more of that at the mall with the youths of all demographics, that Friends had reclaimed a significant piece of the cultural landscape. Wow, I'm surprised, and it is so unhealthy, much more unhealthy than even Jerry and George. Jerry and George are kind of in between. They still stand for some old values. Someone just a viewer just told me, guys don't move in small packs anymore, and if Friends, you even capture that they're kind of. I've never watched one full episode of the show. I always bragged about that when it was popular the first time. They don't seem to move in small packs. It's always a guy, girl, or girl, guy. And they're going about, guys like to move in small packs. It is built into the DNA that we, pack hunted long ago. Yeah. And this is why you actually, well, this is going to sound kind of effeminate, but this is why you don't need meat every day. You get a kill, hunting the buffalo, you eat meat for 2 weeks, and then you might not get another kill for a week or so. But guys like to move in packs, and the Friend guys, whatever their names are, Chandler's the only one who I know because his name is so effeminate that it's, they move against that. Guys in the emasculated West started to move in heterogeneous packs, guy, girl, girl, whatever. We like to move
and the belief that men and women can be good buddies. They actually can't. It's not healthy. You should be a brother to a sister or husband to a wife. You can't don't endlessly hang out with chicks, guys. It's not a good idea.
Before or after marriage. I mean, especially after marriage.
Of course, yeah.
But even before marriage. Yeah. Because then you run into the problem, hey, this is a type 3 Aristotelian friendship between me and this peer woman, and I got married. My wife is trying to tell me not to hang out with her. It's like, your wife has every right to have a problem with that. Like Harry says to Sally, and when Harry met Sally, it's only a matter of time before he's talking to platonic friend her, and the wife comes up and he realizes, maybe I'll just experiment as if this were my wife. It's fundamentally unsound, and it shouldn't be practiced. I think we can be Kantian about it and say it's a categorical imperative.
That is no Kant, what you're saying now.
That's true. I agree. I agree with you.
2% of your audience appreciated that comment.
Yeah.
Very good. And my turn or yours?
That was number 7. I think I was adding you. So number 8, get this. It's not going to shock anyone here. Girls sports. I'm so sick of girls sports. I'll never forget at the end of Kobe Bryant's life, which was a sad event for me, a Laker fan, lifelong until LeBron got to Los Angeles. That he was, I watched a bunch of the, his funeral and a bunch of the, memorabilia shows and whatever recollectives. It was hard to watch because he'd spent literally the last 2 or 3 years of his storied career, his basketball life, as they say, building up girls basketball, and that's just not something that I endorse or embrace. So it's not that it's necessarily evil. It's just, if sports are military training, and they are, and sports literally build up testosterone in the system, well, we can measure. I think there's no greater teleological tell than the fact that when guys get testosterone, you fight cancer better. It's better for your mood. It's better for your life in general. It's better for your immune system. It's better for everything. Across the board, testosterone is good. So playing sports is good for men. You can't argue with that. The creator, the good Lord, designed us that way. When girls get too muscular, like gymnasts at the Olympics, we're reminded once every 4 years, they stop being able to secrete estrogen. They stop being able to have kids. Their bodies start turning male. It affects their moods in unhealthy ways. It affects literally their endocrinology in horrible ways. And they start looking less like they are. So it's Aristotle's function argument. Sports or military training, morally, biologically, whatever, everything teleological in between. It's bad enough that there's such a thing, but it's really bad when guys try to get you to embrace girls' sports, particularly girls in MMA. I can't tell you how many times I've had a talk with a dude being like, oh, this 145-pound chick is tough. No, I don't care if she's a professional fighter. No, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's demonic for women to pound the crap out of each other. It's a stomach churning spectacle to me. I noticed this before my reversion to the faith with women bodybuilders. They reminded me of, you're talking about athletes and women who hard charge physically at that top 2% level. They almost become like a third gender, a kind of square jawed, tight faced thing that's not quite man, but it's no longer woman.
Yeah.
And doesn't accord with femininity.
Like an effeminate male is kind of a fourth gender. I guess this is Tim and Pat's gender theory. There are 4 genders: effeminate men, masculine women, and then everybody else who's doing stuff right. I want to just kick this in. I think it was on point 6. This was a great moment from TNT. It was a Taylor Marshall line, so I want to give attribution. When we were talking about man caves, that was my third one, my number 6. I meant to kick this in. He said, yeah, it's a man house. Like, why do I need that space? I thought that was very apropos of what we were saying now. So I wanted to kick a shout in his direction. It's true. It's what we're saying about the culture comes from the man. This was actually one of the things. This kind of touches on both my recent points, and then I'll kick the ball back to you. It's your turn. You, I think, interviewed a couple times Carrie Gress, who's wrote the Anti-Mary Exposed. Good book. I learned a couple things from it when I was writing my feminism book, which I have an announcement about that I'll do before we leave. But one problem I had with it is she said that women set the culture in a household. That's just not right. That's just not right. And that women are concerned with the end and men with the means. That's perfectly swapped. Men are about the end, women are about the means. It even goes back to your first point, activity and passivity. Men set the culture, women go and implement it, right? Men are the officers, and women are kind of the field sergeant. So, here's the plan, you go implement it. It is the exact opposite. It's one, it was a good book she wrote, but I had some issues with it, and there are some fundamental confusions there. I think you and I talked once, and you're like, get back to me if you know what your issues are. That's one that comes out of both my points 6 and 8.
Yeah. I've interviewed Carrie once. I found it to be an antidote to a lot of nonsense about first, second, third, fourth, whatever feminism wave we're on now. I'm obviously not her spokesperson, but there's a quote from Bishop Sheen on women, and let me find it here.
That's right. She was quoting from Sheen, I think.
Well, he's looking for some people that were having a hard time with the "we're pregnant" thing, because they're saying it's deleting the man's role in the procreative union.
Well, let me take this moment to apologize to no one. Conor McGregor said,
yes.
No, it doesn't delete the man's role. You contribute 23 chromosomes.
The man's role to that experience or phenomena is a nice dinner and a bottle of wine, please. All right, so here's the quote from Sheen, and I think it's from The World's First Love. If I can, it's just one sentence, 2 sentences, and try it on for size. When a man loves a woman, he has to become worthy of her. The higher her virtue, the more noble her character, the more devoted she is to truth, justice, goodness, the more a man has to aspire to be worthy of her. The history of civilization could actually be written in terms of the level of its women.
Ooh. Yeah. I remember reading that in her book, and I don't now. It's kind of like what Huck says about Mary Jane. Actually, a beautiful passage in Adventures of Huck Finn, and it comes directly out of the diaries of Twain himself, where he said he wanted a woman that he wasn't worthy of. this is very literary. It's beautiful as an aesthetic. It's something kind of lovely, but when you try to I don't know, immanentize the eschaton here, or whatever you want to call it, of this sort of aesthetic impulse, it gets muddled, and it starts messing up Christology. It starts messing up the basic natural law instincts we have, the way we know we're wired. It messes up the Aristotelian ethics of what a man is. Justice is called the kingly virtue, precisely because a good man is they're hard to find, as Flannery O'Connor said, but they're so disposed toward the specific disposition of giving to each his due. It's an inherently masculine thing. A really good woman is just, yeah, but still wants to kind of, oh, let's give. Men are just, and justice is the ground for the culture, which is why justice is the kingly virtue. So in one sense, you could take that Sheen quote and not feel like you've been feminism betrayed, like we were with John Paul II so often. He said he wanted to come up with a Christian feminism. Sheen's quote is not that bad, and there's kind of a natural beauty to that, like Huck and Mary Jane. He says she's full of sand, she lights a candle in the window. Beautiful. But men need to be the leaders, and the culture needs to come from the men. Like if a man's a chess player, you kind of expect the wife and kids to get a little bit into chess. If a man's I don't know, Civil War reenactor, you expect the wife and the kids to get a little bit into it, or fake it or something. My problem is with a lot of effeminate men, which is most men now, I see it going the Carrie Gress way, the other way. I'm not picking on her. I just mean, I think that line stuck with me from her book, or otherwise, there are lots of insights in her book that I liked, and lots of research that was great. But there are some real lines where I could tell. I think she's confused on Christology, and Christ sets the culture. The man is fundamentally geared toward the end. A lawyer, as between lawyer and client, one picks the strategy, the other's in control of the tactic. And that's what it is between man and woman. Culture means you're setting the big goals as the leader. And then you say, hey, Sergeant, I'll be gone at work during the day. You effectuate this plan. So I don't think that culture or the telos, the end, can in any way Christian be identified as a feminine thing. And I think it's just confusion from feminism, ironically. What do you think about that?
I think you're mean, and I didn't know we were going to go there. Can we move on? No. I think that saints can make prudential missteps. And I think St. John Paul II, in emphasizing mutual submission and this idea of a new, the feminine genius and Christian feminism, I'm not saying he was virtue signaling, and this is, who am I to go after the great man? But I think it's muddied the waters, and I don't see how you can square mutual submission with scripture and sacred tradition. It just seems like that's the litmus test. That's where your domino falls. Can you say the phrase, the husband's the leader, and read Ephesians 5 without layering it on to post-1960s sensibilities? If you can't, then maybe there's some effeminacy there you might want to look at. You were talking about the habits or the hobbies of the father can be a little bit contagious in the family. There's a Swiss government. So the Swiss are not known for their church-going tendencies. I think it's Neuchâtel, Switzerland, conducted a broad-based survey of religious observation in 1994. You can look it up, just Swiss 1994 faith. And I don't want to get into all the percentage points, but they compared what happens when a teenager or a child has a religious awakening and brings that message, whether at a youth retreat or a conference or something, and brings it home. It's very, very low that it has a permanent change in the family structure. So it's not like Junior brings the gospel home and everybody goes to church, and then it jumps to about 50% when it's the mother who does that, and then it's low 90s when the father has an experience of Jesus Christ and understands the gospel and brings that home. This is the natural order at work. Man as the bishop of the home. Now, bishop's not authoritarian. He's the servant leader. But a head can't have two bodies.
Yeah, amen. It's what I meant about ends, means, culture, culture creation, cultural following, and Pew Research has identically concomitant finding that shows if the only one parent is religiously observant in the home, and it's the man, the kids will not fall away. Very low attrition rate. 90% of the kids will stick with it as long as the dad's religiously observant. And it's like the exact same if it's the dad and the mom. It's like 90%, 90%. If it's only the mom without the dad, which is what our culture is beset by, slob, disgusting, vile fathers that stay at home and watch football when the mom drags the kids nobly on her end to church. It's not, this is not the fault of the women. It's the fault of the freaking men. So I don't want to have then it's only like 10 or 15% of the kids will stick with it. It's like 85, 90% attrition rate. It swaps. Yeah. This is absolutely why the man must be the priest of the home. Women can try, they'll be successful 10, 12, 14% of the time. You need to go get a man, which is what Jesus knew without even these, research by poll. He knew, just get all male discipleship.
There's a book by a Protestant guy, David something. It's called Why Men Hate Church. And it's piggybacks on what you just said. I can use piggyback, right? That's not effeminate.
No.
That for men to conclude that faith formation is women's work and they leave it to the mom, that creates an ever more and more effeminate environment in church. Most Catholic churches on the suburban scene in the United States are environments of femininity. The music is saccharine. It's sort of sentimental. It's like a Broadway ballad. You've got the felt burlap banners. You've got a very kind of overflowing. There's nothing military about it. Compare that to a well-celebrated extraordinary form where you have military precision. You've got half a dozen or a dozen or more boys who they're just in unison. It's beautiful to see. And the silences, the gaps of time where, quote, not much is happening. You see that much more vividly in the extraordinary form there, or the traditional Latin Mass.
Yeah,
there's no room for liturgical abuse, and usually the music is beautiful, and oddly, Catholics actually sing. Who knew?
Yeah, well, when it's chant rather than hymn. Yeah, there's some. Chant is even. Think of Scola. There's something masculine about chant. When I sing, I'm kind of a. People don't know because of this brogue baritone voice I have when I'm speaking. I'm actually a tenor when I sing, but I'm always told when I sing Scola that I need to, I don't know what it is, because there's warmth and brightness in a voice. Make your voice 5 times warmer than it is, not as bright. Because in order to sing chant, it's super masculine. Whereas hymns, well, that's Peter, Paul, and especially Mary type stuff. It's effeminate. One final point on Carrie Gress. I'm getting a lot of second thoughts. People should go pick up the book, support her, support TAN, which is an excellent publication house. There's lots of really important research done in the book. There's lots of important rhetorical points that Dr. Gress makes. I think because really, if we're being fully clinical, I think the attack is the broadside that she makes, which is good, is on second and third wave feminism, and she leaves first wave feminism alone. And I think this is actually what happens. They slip in a lot of premises that shouldn't be allowed to be slipped in by not attacking first wave feminism, which is the real thing. But it's a good book and it's worth a read. So it's The Anti-Mary Exposed by Carrie Gress. Not throwing shade over there, just technical critique, but a good book and worth reading, and people should get it on TAN Books. I think you're up, Pat.
And the both of you cite Pew Research and not Pepe Le Pew Research, because that's wrong. Pepe
It's stinky. Pews. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Next up, the USCCB.
Yeah.
Now, please don't write to me. Are you attacking bishops? Are you a bishop basher? No. But I am understanding what then Cardinal Ratzinger explained more than once, that national bishops' conferences do not have any doctrinal authority. They're not binding on the faithful. They are, as in the case of the monster machine in Washington, D.C., the Democratic Party at prayer. Going into Father Richard John Newhouse. They're individual bishops that are great. And when I say individual bishops, everyone's thinking of one man, right? Bishop Joseph Strickland of Tyler, Texas, the constantly conspicuous exception. I found a tweet that the USCCB deleted, and I want to give a hat tip to William M. Briggs, the statistician to the stars, who found it again. And it's this. This was tweeted from their official feed November 15th last year at their USCCB confab. Quote, "We meet tomorrow for our very first all-virtual General Assembly. How many Baby Yoda GIFs do you think we'll post during USCCB 20? Now, that is effeminacy you can see from space.
Yeah, because it's self-consciously effeminate. They're like, dude, we did this Baby Yoda thing. It got stomped. It got ratio stomped because it's so gross and effeminate. We'll say that. And now they're saying, and how much fun will it be? How wonderful will it be that we get back to these Baby Yoda GIFs? It doesn't get gayer than that, man.
I'm flummoxed. I got nowhere. It would work as a Eye of the Tiber / Babylon Bee. If you wanted to come up with, okay, what effeminate crap can we write and put on the lips of the bishops and to reflect it? You couldn't outdo that.
No, you couldn't. Yeah. Life is stranger than fiction often. It's frightening. Also, there's a Bishop Paprocki. He seems to be really cool.
That's a really good point. Yeah, Bishop Paprocki is a good man. Hockey marathoner and hockey goalie. I remember watching his debut press conference when he was appointed to, I think, Springfield, Illinois. I've interviewed him. He's a good man. He said, facing a phalanx of reporters and cameras, he said, since I'm a hockey goalie, I'm used to a rubber object flying at my face at 90 miles an hour. With that, I'll take your questions.
Right. He's really sharp. He's very, very witty. And he's actually a sometimes law professor at Notre Dame, which I didn't know until I interviewed him here on Rules for Retrogrades.
Interesting. Okay. Roger that. I think your turn.
Yeah, number 10 would be where my number 8 was girls sports. My number 10 is girls making appearance in men's sports. So that means it started in the 80s with female reporters in the locker room. Cue up Cam Newton telling him to leave the locker room. Cam Newton is actually often the vivid, stark, sort of unself-aware masculine voice in sports. He says stuff, often he backs off later, but we still haven't gotten over that because it's awkward to have women in the boys' locker room. Secondly, now Greg Popovich, a huge lib coach on the San Antonio Spurs, was the first innovator to allow a female coach in an all-male sport. Now we have, like I already mentioned, basically girls infiltrating the domain of clearly what need to be male sports as female athletes themselves in MMA. Mm-hmm. That's kind of a mix between number 8 and number 10. But even just, I don't know, indicia of pink effeminacy in the NFL. I mean, they give like a whole month to wearing pink. It's gross. And hey, I know it's for cancer research. As a full-on hypochondriac who's most afraid of cancer and snakes, baby, that's what fears me. Not other men, not the opprobrium of the mob, not things that scare other people, not heights, but cancer and snakes. So yeah, it's great to do cancer research of all sorts, but it's an all men's sport. It's NFL. It doesn't get more all male than that. So how about prostate cancer awareness? I don't appreciate it. And we all know what it is. It is all of the feminist hard left groups that lobby to get this kind of infiltration in the NFL. And they're getting more and more and more every year. So it's girls in men's sports. Now we have girl refs. It's kind of like girl altar boys. It's just like, what are you doing up here? I'm not invading your house for your Tupperware scrapbook party. I'll stay in my own space, man. Stay in your own lane. And don't come into bowling either, even though that's a horrible sport for fat balding men. Still, don't infiltrate that either.
Leave bowling alone, sir.
Stay in your lane.
Sport of kings. Think of the metaphors that it, strike out, Elaine,
Yeah.
balls. I didn't say that.
Yeah.
Very, very good. The establishment Catholic media. Can that be 12? We're up to 13.
No, that's 11. That's only 11.
Oh, 11.
We're
Okay.
now we're in honorable mention territory, and that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what commentary we even have to give to that. A lot of yours have been like persons or groups, and it's like, yeah, everyone in the audience is just clapping at those. Some of my people might be bewildered and might require explication, but yeah, the establishmentarian media that's normalized the homosexualization of the clergy and the effeminization of the laity.
I decided to just avoid the low-hanging fruit. I was going to include the Jesuits, but come on, that's too easy.
The SJs, that's how we avoid the bots here on Rules for Retrogrades. Whenever we mention Father James Martin, we just say James Martin SJ, and that's who he is. That's who he cares about. Or other Jesuits.
The Jesuits need to be suppressed. I think if someone just contacts the Pope, oh, wait a second. Frankly, I was expecting a bigger reaction, Tim.
Because I was slow. I was slow for it, but then I got it. Yeah, no, that was good.
Oh, can we squeeze this lemon a little bit more? Because all these honorable mentions are coming up. Unless you want to strictly stop at 11.
No. Honorable mention it all the way. They're limitless.
You will like this. When a man says that he married up.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Is that a slow clap?
That's slow clapping you. Yeah.
I am giving a standing ovation.
Yeah.
If I were wearing a hat, I would tip my hat to you, sir.
Well, thank you very much, and make it a fedora. Men, those words have been said by women never.
Yeah, that's true. If she did, everyone would be telling her to seek counseling.
100%. How many women say, well, I have to check with the boss? Whoa! Whereas men do this all the time. Yeah, but you're Steph, you're an outlier.
She's not the norm.
Yeah.
She should be.
Yeah.
That would be my happy wish for every man, that they could find a woman like Steph. As a matter of fact, I once told we were in the same friend group, and before we started dating, she dated a friend of mine, and I told him, I was like, man, I was dating lots and lots of girls in college, and I said to him honestly, I was like, well, I know you guys aren't super serious, but I've dated most of the girls in Dallas, aside from Steph Abeda, that's her maiden name, and if I could clone her, I would. And instead, since that's immoral, I just had to start dating her and then wed her. But she is an outlier. But that's the funny part, is that it wouldn't even be funny if a woman's. I mean, people will say this to us at a store or something. It'll be like, "Oh, you got to ask the boss to make a purchase," and Steph's like, "What?" She'll like jump in. She'll be like, "What? He has to ask himself?" She's. I mean, it's right. Quite gratifying because people don't know what to do. It's like, why would he ask himself something in front of you? He's the boss. I'm not the boss. Yeah, people don't know what to do.
Her old Twitter handle was a joyful milk spurt moment for me. @ask your husband.
Yeah. I get asked where because I think I'm being shadow banned on Twitter. You and I talked about this about a week ago.
You are.
Yeah, because it's like, how many thousands of followers do I have? And ever since one day in November, I forget which one it was. I think the third day of November, it just like that. I can't, I never ever get 1,000 likes anymore. Even 100 has become rare. And I have lots of people that follow me, so I must be getting shadow banned.
It's a garbage platform. The number of people actually reading your tweets is very, very low.
That must be the case. But anyway, Steph wasn't, believe it or not. And I get more, kind of doleful remembrances of her Twitter account than I get of when I used to tweet more. People are like, oh man, I missed you. And she's written the book, Ask Your Husband, for Tan, the new feminism book, the one that will offend many, many more people than the Grass book. but it's a great book. I'm reading through it with her now, and then we're submitting the manuscript. And it's going to be a live wire. Let me tell you that, like the author herself, it's a live wire. It's going to be dynamite. And well, I could say more. That might be the only Gordon feminism book that people see in 2021, because is this the appropriate time to do it? I haven't really said officially. Why not do it when I have the moral support of Pat here? Yeah, the book has been canceled. The No Christian Feminism.
No Christian Feminism. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's been a jokey show. This has been something we've been dealing with, trying to cope with, trying to find workarounds over the last 2 weeks, praying about, of course. I don't know exactly what the solution is going to be, but that is shockwave. Yeah, the book has been canceled. They were saying lots of bookstores were pre-canceling it. I don't know how they found out who. There's a whole set of jokes that goes along with this, but I don't know how bookstores pre-cancel it, but you might only be able to.
Home. Logos is always rising. It'll find a home, and this will be, you'll look back on the pressing of the pause button as a blessing in disguise. Remember the day you told me that you had been given the Golden Boot Award by Garces?
Yeah, I do.
I remember you sounded like a hollow man, like, oh God in heaven, now what? And my first thought, and it wasn't me being glib or superficial or Hallmark cardi, I congratulated you that this is going to supercharge everything you've got going on. You just can't quite see it yet. And I'm wrong about a lot of things, but I think I was right about that.
Oh,
that
yeah.
was a big
no, and
bounce,
you're not
bounce for you.
You're not very much. You're not being glib. It was literal. I called you. You were one of the first people I called, and that was literally the first thing you said. You go, "Oh, congratulations, that's awesome." And I was like, "Yeah, no, I see where this is going." It's funny because people can still go watch. The show is dated June 9th. That's when we were so busy for 6 days, from June the 3rd, when I actually got fired. But that interview was being conducted. It's a little piece of history, rules for retrogrades history. I was interviewing Henry Davis, Black MAGA guy, great American. And when all of a sudden Steph walked in and said, "You're done." And oops. Oh,
I'm glad you did that. Yeah, just keep him off, Steph.
Yeah. I did that on purpose. That was me.
But no, you really did say that. And it's true. Do you want to do an honorable mention dump, boom, 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 machine gun style here, Pat? Because I have a couple more, I think.
Yes.
We can still
While
alternate.
you guys are looking, people are mentioning in chat they want you guys to make comments on Milo real quick. If you are.
Okay, I'll get to Milo in just a sec. Men who support women in combat.
That's where I was going. I was going there. I literally have it here. Another suggestion: women on frontline combat. Yeah. Wow, that's great. Yeah. It's the same thing as men who say that these 140-pound female fighters are tough. It's vile. It turns my stomach. Yeah. It's really bad. And so, I mean, you literally took the next one I had in the can. What else did we have? We had a couple honorable mentions. Now I've forgotten that. I didn't think you would take that one. I was having fun
thinking of a lot of this stuff. Obviously, happy wife, happy life is also maybe honorable mention, like just people commenting on how many kids you have in the grocery stores.
It is effeminate.
It's men that are doing it. It's not even women. Usually when women mention it, they're like, "Oh, good for you." When men mention it, it's always this, "Oh."
And what do I say? It's always men. It is effeminate. It's unfertile. It's not fecund. What do I always say to the men? My new thing since this past summer.
You have so many.
Well, my new go-to is I say, "Hey man, I don't know what to tell you, but contraception is for guys who have wives with boyfriends." They don't know what to say.
I love that.
I really like saying it. It's the best thing because it's effeminate. It's low T. It's low T.
Yeah, birth control is low T. Men who wear condoms are effeminate.
Yeah,
because they don't see that, or they refuse to see that contraception turns your wife's body into an elaborate masturbation tool.
Yeah. We're going for the M word there. Yeah, just go for it. Boom. Yeah, no, it does. I mean, and it's undeniable. And it's this act of, who is it? Sheen, Archbishop Sheen, I think, that says, like, it is a great no that even if you kind of agree, husband and wife, to set up this disgusting contraceptive model, it really is her saying no to you. She's goalying you out. Everyone gets the imagery. since you just laid down the M word.
Pulling the goalie.
Yeah, pulling the goalie is what guys that are low T that contracept call it. If we, once a year they have a true marital act with their wife, it's low T. It's pathetic. It's for cucks. Yeah. So,
here's an honorable mention: mask wearing men.
Yeah.
See, women don't like men who are afraid of dying from a disease with a 99% plus survival rate.
No.
I see men, grown men, with their windows up in their car, alone with a mask on. I feel like getting them to wheel down their window. Yeah, sir. Hey, buddy. Yeah, you're dead to me. It's just a sign of the lemming, knee-jerk, not thinking about things, not reading a book, not examining behind, and then virtue signaling because you have your magical face diaper on. They don't realize, effeminate men who wear masks don't realize that the mask is a living symbol of your subjection to tyranny fueled BS.
That's right.
And it's not going to end unless we end it, which is why we put this summit together.
No, that's right. What's the date on that again?
April 29th through May the 1st. RestoreTheCulture.com is the website. Yeah.
No one ever has events like that on April the 1st because everyone thinks they're just getting fooled.
We're doing it like ironically.
So cool.
Joke's on you.
The way to generalize all of this, what's effeminate about pretty much all of our points and all of our honorable mentions, it's a point that Steph made when we, for once, put the stem on the apple. We have our one boy who's now 3 and he's got 5 sisters. Is that guys, little boys just don't, and he gets it from his papa, and guys in general that have a sufficiently high testosterone count, they just don't like following rules. And women are meant to be docile. They're created to follow the household orders of their husband, or if they're nuns, that's a little different. You take a vow of obedience. That's a special vocation. But men just aren't made. We're made to really stand down to God alone, right? Which is why we're the household priests, the ecclesiola. Think about it that way. You are not meant. The prudence, Thomas also calls prudence the kingly virtue. Between the two cardinals, sometimes Aristotle calls justice it, meaning it's the most important manly virtue. Mm-hmm. Thomas will call prudence. It means you don't stand down to anyone as a man, except God and the sacraments and that which whereas women are kind of like, they stand down to God as mediated by the husband's rules, the husband's culture, whatever. And again, no one meets me and Steph and has ever said, "Oh, this seems like a tyrannical relationship." I mean, we're both have big personalities and we're just goofing off most of the time. But the point is, men, and you see it in little boys, our one who is our 5th out of 6 kids. He's just like little me. He just doesn't like rules. Men are not made to be told what to do constantly. I mean, you can subvert the will and all that. That's obviously Christian, but women are meant to subvert the will. This is the whole activity passivity thing on which you started us off.
Yeah, you're pointing out a really important paradox here of the concept of equality, which floats around and never gets analyzed. Men and women are not equal. That doesn't even make sense. We're equal in something, and that is we're equal in dignity. God the Father loves men and women with the same fatherly love as you love your sons and your son and your daughters, right? But Jesus Christ, who is the par excellence model of husbandly identity and service, the church is obedient to him. It's submissive to him. But that doesn't mean Christ is an autocrat or an authoritarian, because he himself is submissive to the Father. So shifted to the Godhead, Christ being submissive to the Father doesn't mean they're not equal.
Yeah, no, that's true. It's a tougher point to wrap your head around, with Christ being submissive to the Father and not being equal. But it's absolutely theologically true. Lest I become
the king to his subject as well. You imagine a king and a subject both in the front pew kneeling before the holy sacrifice of the Mass. In that relationship, they are utter equals. but in the political social sphere, they're unequal for temporal reasons. Back to your son doesn't like rules. You should take a picture of him like looking badly or askance at your rules for retrograde book.
Because I tell you, that guy does whatever the hell he wants.
Yeah.
You can tell him, don't go here. He's going there. It's like the beginning of Cool Hand Luke, man. Gaby walking with all those signs flashing.
He's like become like a joke among all of our friends because he is insane in the membrane.
He's man amid nature. He just does whatever he wants, and he's 3.5. He's crazy. He's nuts.
Wild. He's wild. Well,
he'll just take a bite out of your ear.
Yeah, I hope you're feeding him with Ritalin all day.
Yeah, exactly. Because he doesn't act like the little girls. What's the matter with him? I love this. I don't love it at all. And we're going to take some questions. Can you hang out for a sec, Pat? A few questions.
I think there's some for Pat. They wanted
for a huge fee, which for you I'm willing to triple. Go ahead. By the way, sidebar, kudos for mentioning Cool Hand Luke, which is one of the great underappreciated classics about masculine leadership and example, featuring an atheist Christ figure played by the great Paul Newman.
I know. That was my introduction. Great film teacher at 10th grade, Miss Felice, Dallas Jesuit. One of the great teachers I had at Dallas Jesuit. That last scene, man, of the
crossroads
drag line. Yeah. Him with the two thieves on either side, the superimposed picture at the crossroads, making the cross. It was my introduction to serious imagery in film. No, I just want to say it's really, really perverse that those of us who are like, I guess, re-enlightened on masculinity versus effeminacy, we always find it necessary to cross ourselves, as it were, by saying, when we say, oh, well, the man's the leader, but it doesn't mean we're abusive jackasses who destroy everyone's hopes and dreams and crush their neck with our foot. It's like, well, that's not what you would assume. Like when Aristotle goes through, and Plato in Book 7 of the Republic goes through the 3 good regimes. You can have 3 different regimes that are good and loving king, loving aristocracy, loving leaders in a republic. He doesn't go through and introduce them by saying, well, here's the corrupted form first. And now there is a corrupted form for a monarchy. It's a tyranny. There is a corrupted form of an aristocracy. It's an oligarchy. There is a corrupted form of a republic. It's called a democracy, literally. But you introduce the form where all the potency is actualized and you're firing on all 4 of the regime. And you just say, this is the norm. You hope things work out. So when you say, oh, the man's the monarch of the home, it's really odd to say, but he's not a tyrant. It's like, he's the monarch of the home. He only becomes a tyrant if extra bad stuff happens, privation, failure to adequate potencies. But why would we even feel the need to say that? It's like saying, oh, my son's a basketball player, but he doesn't abuse drugs like some basketball players do. It's like, yeah, I didn't think so, dude. Yeah, kings are good.
I think the need flows out of the wall-to-wall 24/7 propaganda.
Sure.
If you want to drop in a reference to the biblical view of husbands and wives, it's almost required that you make one caveat to show that you're not your position isn't extremist. So you're kind of anticipating objection and kind of neutralizing it without apologizing for it, obviously. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. It's being an unexplained rule. I already told you, I refuse to follow it. I just say, I'm the king. But
I told you to follow it. I don't know where the problem here is.
I'll consult Gabe on my compliance. So were there some Pat specific questions?
Specifically for Pat, 2 questions I'm seeing. Somebody's asking, is mainstream NFP really just Catholic contraception for betas? And then somebody else is asking, how many kids does Pat have?
Good question. Last question first. 2 on earth, 2 in heaven. We had a miscarriage before Mary Claire and lost a 15-day-old baby girl named Saint Naomi Rose, who was baptized by yours truly, confirmed sacrament of the sick. And then we have 2 other kids. I try to leave my children out of my public sphere, but yes, so I'm a father and a husband. To the first question, some people may use natural family planning as a Catholic baptized form of birth control if their employment of strategically avoiding sex on days they believe are fertile, that would be an immoral, self-centered use of an otherwise legitimate lifestyle. The Catholic Church does not teach that that Catholic moms are supposed to be baby factories with no caveats whatsoever, that you need a grave reason. And a lot of traditionalist Catholics don't know what the original language is in Humanae Vitae or even Casti Connubii. Serious and just are the words used by the Catholic Church to describe conditions that would justify spacing conception as a means of responsible parenthood. And responsible isn't even a great translation from what Humanae Vitae intends to communicate. Because Pope Francis has misused that to say, oh, well, come on, my goodness, don't be a rabbit. Responsible parenthood. So that becomes a way of legitimizing stinginess with your gift of fertility. Natural family planning means sex plus nothing. Because God has designed the human female with 1 day per month of fertility, that is a massive proportion of sex for pleasure and unity over sex for procreation. So God is a genius.
Yeah.
And he's designed this rhythm of yes and no so that the couple, and there's no template rules that the Catholic Church lays down for couples. They have to discern this in their own context and in terms of prayer. So every act of contraception is intrinsically evil, and every act of intercourse must be open to new life. Those are the building block principles of Humanae Vitae. And I wish people would read Casti Connubii as well from 1930. It was written partly as a response to the Anglican effort at the Lambeth Conference in August of 1930 that created the first fissure, the first crack in the dam of Christendom. And boy, Pius XI, he was a most underappreciated pope. Casti Connubii on chaste marriage is a beautiful thing to read. It's very fulsome. It's very masculine. Not only is there no fat on his prose, there's no effeminacy in the spirit or the letter of Casti Connubii from, I think it's December 31st, 1930.
It's awesome. Guess it's also it's one of the OG anti-feminist pieces encyclicals of the 20th century. Can I just add a little gloss to what you said, Pat?
Yeah.
A lot of I think traditionalists commit something that we traditionalists accuse, liturgically speaking, a lot of this sort of J2P2 crowd of doing, and in the realm of liturgy, which is to say, we speak as if there is no bimillennial Catholic tradition previous to, and then we say like Vatican II or something like that. Which I do believe they commit that. A lot of people in the sort of center right to left crowd talk like there's no pre-Vatican II anything in the church. A lot of people that get off talking about NFP, natural family planning, talk about this 3-word expression like it's the bimillennial tradition of the church. The bimillennial tradition of the church is the following, with no gloss. That's a 20th century creature. That term was made up then. Here's the rules on marital sex. It's really, really clear. There are 3 fonts for what each individual coming together of man and wife must bear. It must be marital. So it has to be between 2 people who are jointly married. It must be procreative, and it must be unitive. Means it must be open to life from a genetic material point of view, and it must, without being too specific, it must culminate in a particular geographic region, anatomical region. That's it. So the problem with NFP is it tends to characterize, or using prescriptive rather than descriptive language, a bunch of moral acts by 2 married moral agents over the course of 6 months. Well, you haven't had a baby in 6 months. Is that NFP? When we deal with action theory as Thomists in the church, we are dealing with the individual acts of moral agents on a time-by-time basis. So you can't use prescriptive language to characterize validly from a Thomistic point of view how one is acted a bunch of times over 6 months. What I'm saying is the rules are more lax than people assume. If each individual act of marital procreation is procreative, unitive, and marital, which is paraphrastic, then you're good, provided that there's not some heart hardening or some wrong disposition, between two perfectly fecund people that are using it permanently. Then there might be some attitudinal dispositional problem if you've been married for 20 years and you have no kids. But the use of NFP is actually a trad version of the other thing, where we talk like this neologism is the bimillennial tradition. The bimillennial tradition talks about those three fonts. It's really clear. You have to make sure each individual act 1, 2, and 3.
There's 2 questions.
Yeah. Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Very good gloss, by the way. Another post JP2 misunderstanding is the idea that the procreative and the unitive ends or meanings, they actually almost never talk about ends. And this leads to the strong speculation that John Paul II, when he was Carol Wojtyła, had a ghostwriting hand in the drafting of Humanae Vitae, because it bears the stamp of John Paul II's personalism and the language he used in the Theology of the Body. By the way, 8 or 9 years before Humanae Vitae was published, all of the Theology of the Body stuff was audience tested and written. It didn't emerge into public consciousness until 1979 with his Wednesday audiences. But Catholics today are, and I hear this a lot from Catholic educators and catechists, well, the old language was that procreation is the primary end. But really, John Paul II clarified it's the procreative and the unitive meanings. That is not true. That's two ways of saying, they're saying the same thing, going in the same direction. You can talk about the procreative and the unitive meanings as long as you retain the bimillennial teaching that the primary end of a marital act is procreation. Doesn't mean it's the only, it just means that it's primary. You can offend against the secondary end of marital unity. How could you do that? Well, you could sexually assault your wife because you want an heir.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Right. But at the same time, if that potency, the teleological potency, the prime end of the act is not being fulfilled in a given act, or 6 months or 6 years of given act, it doesn't prima facie mean that it's a violation of one of the three fonts of the act.
I agree. Venerable Pius XII clarified this in several public allocutions, that couples can make use of the knowledge of infertility indefinitely if the reasons of seriousness and justice perdure. So you can avoid fertile days if you have a just and serious reason.
Right. Yeah. I think we just need to get back to thinking of satisfying obligations. Too many Catholics get, Sunday obligation to go to mass is an obligation for a reason. There's not an obligation to go to Disneyland once a week. And so you don't typically have obligations to do things that are always and everywhere pleasant.
Yeah.
So I try to get away from this kind of Ned Flandersizing of the faith. The obligation one has with regard to one's wife or one's husband is to make sure that in all the acts which happen, it doesn't mean you have to always try to procreate on the fertile day of the month. Nope.
Right.
There's no omission there. It just means when you are having sex, you have to make sure those three fonts are there. And it can go on indefinitely if you have a decent reason that doesn't run foul of what you're calling the lack of just or fair reasoning.
Right, 100%. And so therefore anything before, during, or after the sex act with your wife that impedes or undermines or sabotages that procreative power, that's the heart of contraception. Look at the word, contraception. It's against the beginning. And as I say in my book, The Contraception Deception, contraception is the theory, abortion is the practice. By the way, that might be another honorary mention. Men who are allergic to obligations are effeminate. Right.
Yeah, no, and I think it's even funny to have to recreationalize obligations to make yourself sound like a better Catholic, sometimes I'll just say, well, I miss the Sunday obligation. I'm sick of this dispensation, because the Sunday obligation to get to Mass makes me do things that I'm not always in the mood to do. I talk to a lot of good Catholics that I think believe that they have to say every Sunday they're in the mood to go to Mass recreationally. Well, that's what the Protestants do, right? We don't need to recreationalize the Mass. Sometimes it's an obligation and you're glad it's there because of your own beatitude. But yeah, I can deal with something qua obligation and just say, I'm going to satisfy this obligation because I'm a man. I'm trying to be a good man. And it's that simple. That's as far as it goes. I need to actualize this potency in the realm of duty.
Deft use of qua.
Just two more
Thank you.
questions.
Okay.
Somebody's asking, Tim, how did your child's surgery turn out? And then any advice for women holding men accountable to be the leader without being a leader or a pain in the butt?
The surgery went excellently. Thank you. It's almost a year in the rear view mirror now. Yeah.
Tempus fugit.
Yeah. April the 6th. Pat, I saw you that day. Pat was hanging out with me, people.
I did.
The day that I brought Abby home. Well, that wasn't April the 6th because it was nearly 3 weeks later. Sometime in late April, the day that Abby got to come home back to our RV. We were living in an RV park because it was during beer bug and all that, a mile away from the hospital, and we were two hours outside of town. It wasn't in Bakersfield. It was at Chalk there. So yeah, you were hanging out with me, and you came with me to go pick up Steph and Abby at the hospital. They'd only allow one parent there at a time. That was really cool of you.
Always happy to hang out with poor mixed race trash. Darn, I was trying to make that sound more fluid. The other question is interesting about, I presume it's coming from a wife, Steph, how to encourage your husband to be a leader without being a pain in the buttissima.
Yes.
I think that this is probably not going to be satisfactory. I don't think she's ever going to be successful for the same reason that St. Monica was not really successful on her own in converting her son. I would suggest or recommend that the question asker prays for someone who's a kind of Ambrose figure in her husband's life. Whether it's rules for retrogrades, maybe it's reading Tim's book, maybe it's getting connected with men who talk about masculinity and all that, because wives can't model it for the husbands. I mean, they can be super moms and they can be outstanding wives, but they can't model a man as leader. That can only come from another man. So a little, dropping hints, books. Hopefully he's a reader. Men need to read. They just have to become readers. I hear this all the time. Well, I'm not just a reader. No, that's a cop-out. You're choosing not to read. There's so much life-changing information in books that are not found on your Facebook friends feed, that don't belong to a TikTok frame. Men have to become readers because they're tapping into great minds of the past in an unmediated way, and it takes some lifting, and that's okay.
Yeah, like Sean tells Goodwill Hunting in the movie Good Will Hunting, it's not your fault. I mean, it's not the wife's fault, but there's nothing they can do. It literally, I love the Monica Ambrose answer you gave, Pat, because it's so true. It's like, well, it sucks for wives who are in this situation. They can't do anything aside from maybe helpful hints in the right direction. But the last thing any man wants to hear, and I'm not siding with the irresponsible one or the one that's derelict in his duty, but no man, good or bad or medium, wants to hear a woman say, what sort of man ... or a good man ... It's like, it's just, everyone said it and every man's had it said to them, but it's not, he needs another man shaking him by the lapels.
Right. Back to Flannery O'Connor. That's a great insight, isn't it? A good man's hard to find.
Yeah. Amen.
There was a question earlier about Milo.
Oh yeah, people wanted your guys' comments about Milo, the news about Milo.
Sure. Want me to go first, Tim?
Sure. I'll just say quickly, he's coming on my show, I think Monday or Tuesday, and I will be going on his show. I was supposed to go on his show Friday, but he's I think he changed what the show topic would be. But I'm really happy. I'm not shocked or anything. I'm happy. Both Pat and I know him, and good for him. Pray to Saint Joseph for him.
To some of the trads who are actually like condemning him, or the left cats who are like making fun of him. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's evil. It's evil. It's evil to condemn someone that's coming fully to Christ. You can do your whole thing, Pat.
I got a email from him yesterday morning as we record this, when the news dropped of his interview with Doug Mainwaring at LifeSite News. I had texted him around the same time. I think his email and my text crossed paths. I had a mixed reaction in a good way. On the one hand, I wasn't that surprised. It's something I've been praying for since I interviewed Milo 2 years ago. On the other hand, you're talking about years of a lot of difficulty and a kind of ossified or semi-ossified identity. Milo's coming on my show this coming Tuesday. Now, Milo obviously loves me only 50% the amount that he loves you, because I'm not doing his show yet. Maybe I'll threaten to release the photos. Anyway, so I want to talk about all this. I don't know why, but in 2018, about 18 months after Milo was expunged from polite society because of comments that he made and were grossly misinterpreted, and then it became a whole mountain of lies that emerged from his Joe Rogan podcast interview. He came on my show, and it was my first long form interview. You can find it. Just Google my name and Milo's. And he really let me go there. He really kind of trusted me that I wasn't going to do gotcha journalism. I just wanted to unspool what happened to him and a bit of his background before the dangerous faggot. Is that going to pass the bot muster here?
Too late now.
The persona that he built, and it's just one of my favorite conversations. The feedback on it was huge, and I realized I don't really need to speak with Milo again as long as the status quo is in place. I asked him everything that I wanted to, and it was a really very humble, honest conversation. Yeah. This new one is going to be broader and deeper, I think more profound, because of the action of God's grace in Milo's life. Milo is not effeminate. Under the rubrics that we've been talking about today, he's not afraid of conflict. He has a punch back twice as hard mentality. He is not passive. He stays ahead of the curve. He's an unusually well-read consumer of classic books. Yes. So ironically, I don't put Milo in the effeminate box by any stretch. And yeah, when I interviewed him, I was pounded by the same, the trads were outraged that I would give a platform to an unrepentant sodomite, and the Catholic left were outraged that I would give a platform to a Trump supporter. So, I mean, people actually wrote why. I mean, they just took the time to write, well, why is Patrick Coffin doing this? This is outrageous. Jesus of Nazareth hung out with sinners, and I think we need to take off our purity glasses and put on our big boy pants and have conversations and the free flow of ideas. I'm looking forward to it. Particularly what caught my attention was his devotion to St. Joseph, the terror of demons. And it's a wonder to behold. I was just obviously happy for him. And I want to know how John feels about being demoted to roommate. So there's the 10,000 questions I can ask him. I'm looking forward to that. Pray for Milo.
Yeah, pray for him. Pray to St. Joseph. A quick point out, it is funny that the pearl clutchers who were going nuts because you or I have associated with Milo over the last couple of years, when he was an unrepentant sinner, there's no change in the equipoise when now he's a repentant sinner, like the rest of us. I mean, not the same sins necessarily, but there's no affected change, which they always claimed would come to pass in their point of view, right?
Exactly right.
Now it's like, oh, well, it's like, dude, this is gospel stuff now. Now you can't even say, this is before I defend him, I'd be like, look, he talks the right talk and he admits he's not walking the talk, but he's still a better talker than most of the Catholic talkers at this talk. Mm-hmm. But now he's walking the talk and they're still mad at him because, well, some of them just misunderstand. Some of them are legit haters. And it's the gift against, it's the sin against the spirit, I would say.
When Tim told me, I actually teared up because I've always had kind of like I almost felt kind of like a maternal heart for Milo. I
Mhm.
you know, keep him in my prayers, and of course he's done a lot for us when he published Tim's book, Catholic Republic. So there's
Mhm.
always been like a great hope in my heart that he would come to this. And like you, I wasn't that surprised, but when the news actually broke, I just felt like such a great relief. I just felt like a relief that it had happened.
Well,
Yep.
one of the
And-
talents you want to see him thrive.
And I thought the Catholic left were all about mercy. What happened to mercy, guys?
Right. All pigs are equal pigs, except some pigs are more equal than others. In their case, literally pigs, but it's from Animal Farm. One quick point about Milo that I made in my response video to him this past summer. He got mad at me for a couple unattributed quotes and something else, but I think we're all good now. What I said is there are two Milos. One is that he assumes that the dangerous whatever is his kind of walking, talking contradiction thing, where he's this talented guy that's saying the Catholic Church is right about everything and Western civilization is great and should be unrepentant.
Mhm.
But he thinks it's part of him assumed, I think, for too long that he could only say that as the dangerous homo or whatever. And it's like, that's not where he's at his best when he's being bawdy or kind of cartoonish. He's at his best just as a great writer, a great reader, a great interview, and a great thinker. He's just smart. Leave behind the Ranger, become who you're born to be. This is what I said in my response video to him last August. But, you're just a talent. He's a talent, and had to straighten that out literally and figuratively in the private life. But now that he should be a real force to be reckoned with. And the title of my video was Why Milo Still Matters. He's too talented and too bright a light, I think, to be burnt out. That's my continued hope and prayer for the guy. Yep. He doesn't need all the stuff. He's just a great, straight up Western civilization commentator. He doesn't need the shtick of being a gay guy that says really, really unapologetically almost straight things. He doesn't need that. He's just smart and he's good at commentation.
Preach it.
Cool. Well, as you say, preach it. I'm going to stop preaching because I won't follow your rules. And I think we've gone way over time, but this has been just wonderful fun.
Wonderful.
Because Pat likes that when bishops say that. And thanks a million for coming on, man. Do you have any quick plugs?
Well, if folks want some practical information on proving that we're being lied to on a massive scale, restoretheculture.com is the website for our upcoming summit. Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigano is presenting. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the original. Well, I don't want to say any names that haven't given me a firm yes. Dr. Peter Bregan, a pioneering psychiatrist, has I have to say, the book coming out soon on how the oligarchs are the predators and we're the prey with this COVID-19. Dr. Bregan wrote Talking Back to Prozac. He was the lead witness in many of the major lawsuits in the 80s and 90s regarding abuse of psychotropic drugs and lobotomies and electroshock therapy. And he's got unique insights as a psychiatrist, and he has the long view of all this. Dr. Leland Stillman, a young physician from Virginia, going to talk about the mysterious effects of light on our health and how the lockdown has made us even more unhealthy. Lockdowns don't work. Countries that had the most severe lockdowns have had the highest deaths, and not because of COVID, but because of suicide and higher crime rates and all that mask efficacy, but really focusing on the so-called, what they're calling it a vaccine. It's really an experimental gene therapy and its role in the Great Reset. Now, if you think that's tiny aluminum foil hats, you need to just read Time magazine from October, I think it's 22nd. Klaus Schwab and the 1% billionaires have a plan for your life that you're not going to like. So restoretheculture.com is that website. Coffination.com is our community. So we'd love to have any new members. We need all the sinners we can get.
Amen. Great quick plug, Pat. I want to direct people, as I always do, to go to realestateforlife.com because I want people to balkanize, to get together with other good Christians and conservatives in blood red states. That means you have to, this includes you, Pat, move from blue states. And if you call or go to the website of realestateforlife.com, they will help you to do this. They meaning a good, probably a Catholic, if not a Christian, everyone being pro-life, will help you, and it's for a good cause. They want to help you move to a new place, good real estate in good blood red states, where you can trust that your neighbor or your crosstown buddy, even if you've never talked to him or even met him, believes in the res publica that you do, Christ on the cross. Go to realestateforlife.com. All right, we're going to get out of this one. And thanks for tuning in, people. Thanks to you, Patrick Coffin,